Well, good morning. My name is Willie Lawson, and welcome to the Morning Report. Today in Davos, well, the president got a late start. Apparently, the Air Force One, the aging Air Force One, had a problem. It was a minor electrical problem, was reported, and the crew said, out of an abundance of caution, making this transatlantic journey, they would just turn back and grab the other plane. Wow, the ability to do that. We'll just take the other plane. All right, so they go get the other plane and they get to Davos, and man, oh man. So every January, if you don't know about Davos, every January the world's self-appointed managers fly into the Swiss Alps to reassure each other that they're still in charge. Davos is where power dresses casually, speaks in vague verbs, and pretends uncertainty is a feature, not a bug. But Davos 2026 feels a little different. This year, the smiles are a little tighter, the language a little softer, the confidence a little thinner. And behind closed doors, one truth keeps breaking through the champagne bubbles. The global elite are losing control of the narrative and possibly the system itself. Wow. So officially, the theme is cooperation, dialogue, shared solutions. Unofficially, Davos is a stress test, and the cracks are showing. The post-COVID economic sugar high is gone. Inflation may be cooling, but trust is not. Governments are broke. Corporations, we talked about this yesterday, are being very, very cautious. And workers are restless. Voters are angry. And technology is advancing faster than institutions can explain it or explain it away, let alone regulate it. Davos isn't where solutions are forged. It's where problems are acknowledged quietly, so they don't spark panic loudly. And this year, panic is close. Our president, Donald Trump, didn't come to Davos to make friends. And that's exactly why his appearance dominated the forum. While most speakers wrap their remarks in diplomatic gauze, Trump was Trump, right? Spoken in plain language. He was Trump. Europe is stagnating, and he said so. Regulation is strangling growth. Energy policy has become ideological instead of practical. And America, despite constant criticism, is outperforming its peers. The reaction was very telling. Publicly, there was discomfort. Privately, there was respect. Because whether you like Trump or not, Davos runs on one currency above all others: results. And the uncomfortable truth is that the US economy, relative to Europe and much of the developed world, looks stronger, more flexible, and more resilient. Trump didn't argue theory, he argued outcomes. And in Davos, outcomes matter more than applause. All right. So one of the I'm sorry, I get the biggest kick out of all of this. One of the quieter bombshells of the forum was Trump's confirmation that a framework exists for a Greenland related deal, and that certain tariffs are being scrapped or reworked. Now, this wasn't about Greenland per se. It was about power projection. Now, Davos elites prefer multilateralism with no clear owner, right? Trump prefers leverage, negotiation, and defined interest. The difference unsettles the global managerial class because it exposes something they hate to admit. They hate to admit that power never disappears. It just stops being acknowledged out loud. So the return of transactional diplomacy, energy details, defense spending demands, trade leverage isn't chaos. It's realism. And Davos, built on the fantasy of permanent consistency, is struggling to adapt. Okay, so this is, if there was one topic that overshadowed everything else, and this is super important to the rest of us, it was AI. It was artificial intelligence, not the utopian version, not the marketing version, but the real one. Behind closed doors, executives admitted that what they won't say on panels. AI investments are massive. And the returns, who knows? They're uncertain. But what we do know is that job displacement is inevitable. We've already seen it in the weirdest places, right? So you call the real estate office to rent an apartment, and AI picks up the phone and tells you about the apartment. You talk to the AI receptionist. Nobody likes it, but it's our reality, isn't it? So certain jobs are going away tonight. Tonight, I go to CVS because it's my wife's birthday. Her present is being delivered, but I want her to have a birthday card because unfortunately she has to work tomorrow. Um, I'm not making her work. She has to work. So I went to get a birthday card to put on her computer tonight. It's there now. So I go to the CVS. I walk in, and the young lady who would normally be behind the counter was sort of standing, in one of the aisles, leaning against the end cap. I don't know what she was doing. She did say good evening or hello or whatever. Um, so I walked by her and find the greeting cards, and I found the card that I wanted. And I'm walking back up front, and because I'm an old person, because I'm 65 and I've lived in this country all my life, I expected her, as she saw me, to start making her way behind the counter, to ring me up. She didn't move. So I made the turn and went to because I didn't want to be there all night. I went right to the little self checkout kiosk, paid for my thing. I left, and I thought to myself as I was walking out the door, y'all got to be careful, because when I got back up to the front, there was somebody else working at one of the end caps stocking it. And I thought to myself, y'all know that y'all can be replaced by robots, and you probably will very soon. Very soon. I just walked in, grabbed what I wanted, paid the robot, out I went. While you just stood there and looked at me, getting money, being an insurance risk. I don't know, probably not getting health care, but they could be, or retirement, or all the expenses of hiring a person, employment tax, all that stuff. That CVS could get rid of that in two shakes, because the most important thing that happened today didn't require them. So there will be job displacement, and governments aren't ready. Technology is moving faster than governments and institutions can even think about. And ethics frameworks are decorative. They're just putting stuff, they don't know. But publicly, speakers talked about responsible deployment. Privately, they talked about who controls the models, who owns the data, and who's going to get left behind. AI has moved from innovation to geopolitics. It isn't about productivity anymore. It's about dominance, economic, military, informational dominance. Davos understands that. What it doesn't understand is how to slow something that nobody wants to be second at. So the polite panic continues. Here's something that's changed. Because for years, Davos preached globalization as a net good that will lift all boats. This year, the language has changed. Now it's about transition. It's about reskilling. It's about adaptation. That's elite speak for some people are about to lose badly. AI, automation, supply chain reshuffling are converging all at the same time. White collar jobs once considered safe are suddenly on the table. Now remember, not too long ago, Amazon let a whole bunch of people go, and they weren't the people driving the trucks. They weren't the people stocking the trucks. They were all the white collar jobs, people working from home that weren't going into a center. All the people who don't sweat, who don't use their hands, they don't lift stuff. Not the warehouse people. The warehouse people are in a battle with the robots, no doubt. But the white collar jobs seemed safe, right? But most of what they're doing, AI can do it better, faster, cheaper. This is this is happening, friends. This is happening. And the social contract already frayed. It's being stretched past this limit. The problem isn't that work is changing. Work has always changed. The problem is that people designing the future don't bear the cost of the disruption. And the voters know it. That's why Davos fears populism more than recession. Now, normally, what we've been dealing with at Davos is climate. Climate, 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 climate. Now, it was still on the agenda, but it was noticeably demoted. The rhetoric softened, the absolutism faded, the urgency was reframed. Why? Well, it's easy because reality showed up. We talk about reality on this show all the time because reality said, hey, remember me? Energy shortages, geopolitical instability, and voter backlash has forced leaders to admit something that Davos had avoided for years. You cannot decarbonize on ideology alone. This year, the real conversation wasn't about net zero timelines. It was about reliability, affordability, and national security. In other words, the adult conversation has finally arrived. And it quietly dismantled years of green posturing. So despite the slogans, Davos 2026 revealed a world moving towards blocks, not harmony, because trade disputes are back, security alliances are hardening, technology ecosystems are diverging, and supply chains are regionalizing. The fantasy of a single global operating system is over. And Davos, built to manage that fantasy, is now trying to retrofit itself for a fractured world. It's not working. Okay, so here's an unspoken truth hanging over every Davos panel. People don't trust the people in that room anymore. And it isn't because they're rich, and it's not because they're powerful, but because they speak in abstractions while everybody else lives with consequences. Davos leaders talk about stakeholders. Voters talk about groceries. Davos panels discuss inclusive growth. Workers, like the ones at Amazon I just mentioned, they see layoffs. Davos warned about populism, and populism warns about Davos, right? That gap is a story of our time. Now everybody wonders, so why do they keep doing this? Well, Davos hasn't collapsed. It hasn't been ignored, and it still convenes power, but it no longer commands moral authority. It reacts now instead of leads. It explains instead of persuading. It manages decline instead of shaping ascent. That's why Trump's presence mattered so very much. Not because he represents all the answers, but because he represents a rejection of a Davos consensus. Now, Davos 2026 was not a celebration, it was a diagnostic. The diagnosis: global elites are anxious, systems are strained, narratives are breaking, and control is slipping. And the most dangerous thing for the managerial class is not opposition, it's irrelevance. That's why Davos feels quieter this year, because they know the world is changing. They're just not sure if it still needs them. The more we find out, the more we'll tell you. So until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sake, y'all take care of yourself. We will see you when we see you. Bye bye now.